What is your Tinder horror story? Well, I've only gone on one Tinder date. We talked for a bit and I agreed to pick her up at Starbucks. She looked nothing like her pictures, but I thought I should be nice and at least hang out with her for a bit. We went to her place and the entire house reeked like cat pee. Like saturated. Then as she proceeded to show me her massive collection of animal tail butt plugs, she screamed at her chihuahua and smacked it right on the nose and without missing a beat just asks if I want to make out on the couch. I awkwardly sat down and pretended to look at my phone and made up that my grandma was dying so I could cheat fo. We were supposed to meet at 9 p.m, he fell asleep and called me at 9:30 when I was already at the carnival. I told him not to bother coming as I didn't want to see him. He asked for another chance and I agreed. Unfortunately my dad got really ill and had to spend the next 6 weeks in the hospital with me visiting him daily. I had no time for dates and he got extremely mad. He made a fake Instagram account which he used to follow me and everybody that I followed. He then saw me in a friend's Instagram story and showed up to the restaurant we were at. He called me a whore and a liar and we had to threaten to call the police because he would not leave. Edit, some of you are asking how it ended and I'll just add this to my comment. He had my number and kept calling me using different phones. I knew it was him because he'd just be silent and I could hear him breathing. He did this for over 10 months, I was even living in a different country towards the end. One day I was expecting a call from a friend and had a missed call from a landline so I called back. It was his mom. I explained to her what was happening and after a long silence she said please don't call the police, I will talk to him. Never heard from him again. Edit 2, some people are asking how the convo with his mum went so I'll just type it here too. I was living in Thailand at the time and I had a friend, Luis, text me the night before telling me that he missed me and he wanted to catch up so I told him he could call after I finished work. I was a teacher there. When I came back from school I saw I had a missed call from a landline and I assumed it was Luis so I called back. A woman picked up. Hello? Me, hi, Teeny Gecko here, I have a missed call? It must have been Carlos, he's not home at the moment but I'll have him call you later. It clicked for me, I only know 2 guys named Carlos. Me, Carlos surname? Yes. Me, I'm sorry but could I talk to you for a second? Then I told her everything I remembered, I was so scared she would not believe me and call me a liar etc. I was shaking and I've never felt so shit. It was nearly 2 years ago and I forget the exact details but she kept whispering Dios mío as I was telling her. She asked me to not call the police and I told her I would if I ever heard from him again. I never did. Edit 3, some people are asking me how I found out about the fake Instagram account so here it goes. The reason I was at a restaurant was because my sister had flown in from Dublin to visit my dad for a weekend and she made plans to meet her friends for tapas. I drove her to the restaurant and her friends saw me drop her off and asked me to stay, I did. After a while, I saw him and he yelled, the waiter threatened to call the police, and after the madness I sat back down and we all looked at each other like WTF. I wondered how TF he knew I was there and the only way he could have known was because one of my sister's friend put up a story where we were all saying saluo with our drinks and she saw that 140 plus people saw the story. We ended up finding his profile and realized that he had followed everyone I followed so that's how. We all reported the account and it got taken down by Instagram. Matched with my BFF's fiancé after the engagement party. Screenshots of everything and lost my BFF because I don't play that. I was uninvited to the wedding. Marriage lasted 18 months. Edit, thank you for the gold award. Since so many have asked, I did not swipe right. I took a screenshot and asked my friend what she wanted me to do. She asked me to swipe right to see if he was active. I did and he messaged me asking to hook up. I told him off. He still wanted to hook up. I gave her all the screenshots. He uninvited me from the wedding because he was certain I would embarrass him. He was correct. I wouldn't sleep with my friend's fiancé, nor would I pretend that he wasn't a jerk. That's why the friendship ended. She was from a culture that required marriage before children. She was desperate for a baby and thought he was her last chance. He was running for a public office and wanted the smiling wife and cute baby. Yes. They both used each other. Edited to add, yes. They had a baby. Edited to add, no. He did not get elected. My worst Tinder experience was pretty traumatizing for me at the time. I was a sophomore in college and she was a junior or senior at the same school. The first time we ever hung out, I went over to her apartment and we just watched some Netflix and hung out. Nothing crazy. I was thinking this chick is super cool, we may have something here. So I leave telling her I'd like to see her again if she's down. She told me she would love to and just hit her up whenever and we'll make some plans. We start texting/Snapchatting throughout the week and organize some plans for the following weekend. Out of nowhere, she starts sending me unsolicited nudes. Never once asked for them, and when we were hanging out the weekend prior, there was no sexual activity at any level. We quite literally Netflix and chilled. It caught me off guard, but I was more than cool with it. I'm a young college guy and this hot older chick wants to send me nudes after only hanging out one time? Say less. Fast forward to the weekend, she comes to my apartment and we're hanging out with my roommates watching something on TV. She asks me if she can stay the night, and after sending nudes to me all week, I kind of figured what was up, so in my head I'm like, fuck yes. But I tell her of course, and to be polite I offer to sleep on the couch because we've only known each other for all of about 2 weeks and have only seen each other in person one time prior. She tells me she'd rather me sleep in my bed with her, so I know it's on. We get to Netflix and chilling in my room and I make a move. We start to hook up and eventually wind up having sex. I wore a condom and finished inside of it and tossed it off to my side of the bed. As we're laying there after a few minutes, she gets up abruptly, comes around to my side of the bed and grabs the condom off the floor and runs into the bathroom. I'm a little confused, maybe a little concerned, but kind of brush it off. As I'm laying there in my bed I hear a loud crash in my bathroom. She yells fuck. I ask if she's okay and get no response. I'm a little concerned, thinking this girl just fell in my bathroom and cracked her head open or something. I go to open the door and she's standing in my shower with one leg propped up trying to shove the condom up her vagina after she flipped it inside out. I freak out, no clue what to do. She's clearly freaked out and probably embarrassed. I have no clue. I shut the door and she immediately comes back out, says she's gonna leave, and I say sounds good. I never hear from her again. We lived about 25 minutes from each other, so agreed to meet at the beach pier about halfway between. Before meeting, we had been texting and he seemed totally normal. I was already at the pier when he texted me saying he can't meet me there because his license is revoked and it's too far for him to walk. I should have just left then, but I agreed to meet him at a pizza place closer to him. I get there, and I'm standing outside when I see him, and quickly realize the pics from his profile were at least 3 to 5 years old. Homeboy looks like the dollar store version of himself. Greasy, looks like he hasn't showered in days, hair undone, holes in his shirt. I awkwardly give him a side hug and suggest we get a seat, and he says, "Oh, no, we're not getting pizza. Let's go to the park." I awkwardly say okay, and as he talks, I realize his gums and tongue ring are stained black from smoking. By this point, I am completely turned off and am just keeping up with formalities. So we get to the park and find a bench to talk, and before I can sit down, homie pulls me onto his lap, squeezing me and saying, "God, baby girl, you are so fucking cute." I awkwardly scooch away and try to get a conversation going. He pulls out his phone and starts texting for a few minutes, not really listening to me, before interrupting with, "Have you smoked? My friend is a plug, we could go back to my place for a bowl." I decline. Or, "Come on, baby girl, my place is just right there. We could have some fun, too." I decline again. Next thing you know, he pulls me close by the face and whispers, "You're so innocent," before broad-tongued licking my face from chin to ear. Shell-shocked, I just sit there for a moment processing what the fuck just happened as he keeps talking about weed before I decide to fake an urgent phone call and leave. Edit, word. Edit 2, no need to worry guys. I have self-esteem now and would never put up with anything like this ever again. This was 3 years ago when I was 19 and dumb as shit. Chatted with this girl for about 2 weeks. Every conversation went well and eventually I got her number and she started sharing nudes and speaking dirty. Late on evening after a stressful workday she talks me into driving an hour to come get coffee with her. She spends the next hour and a half non-stop talking about her ex and how she has to see him at the bank and all this personal upset ex-girlfriend stuff. She cuts me off anytime I try to speak or changed the subject right back to him. A day later I get a text about how I didn't do any talking and I was too boring to be anything more than just friends with. She got irate when I pointed out she would not allow me to speak and only wanted to talk about her ex-boyfriend when we have never once had a slow or boring conversation before meeting up. This girl I matched with just messaged to troll me. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" and she was like, "Don't talk to me unless you plan on fucking me with your 9-inch dick." I forgot what my reply was but she obviously never messaged back. Then a week later I'm getting McDonald's and this girl was the one who handed me my food. She recognizes me instantly and just had this total look of fear in her eyes. I walked out of there so quick. That poor girl thought I purposely sought her out to confront her or something. The proper response to this demand is always, "I don't care how hot you are, I'm not cutting 2 inches off my dick." Edit, I do appreciate the gold, but please consider donating to worthy charities instead. The Animal Rescue Cooperative is helping injured wildlife following the Australian bushfires this year, which killed and displaced literally billions of animals. Edit 2, for the longest time, my top comment was some advice to a young man about how to deal with the fact that his girlfriend cheated on him with his roommate. Then, it was an analysis about why the writing seemed so poor in the final 2 seasons of Game of Thrones. Now it's an offhand comment paraphrasing a joke I once read in an old Playboy. Oh, how the turntables. A chick said she was having a work party at her house and I should come over. It's Biob, so I bought a 6-pack for myself. Went to her place and noticed more than half of the people were younger, 17 to 18, while I was 21 and the girl was also 21. Then they gathered everyone in the living room and proceed to talk about the job. Turns out it was one of those pyramid scheme recruiting gatherings. I just sat there drinking my beer, only one drinking, for 2 hours because I thought it was rude to leave because they were telling sob stories and saying how much this job had helped them. Sat there listening to some head of the group guy saying how we can make millions in a short amount of time. Saying bullshit like, "You see my BMW 3 Series out front? That's a company car that you can drive around in, if you do what we do." It was sad because they were trapping low-income teens that are deciding not to go to college and to join them. After the pitch, I pretty much had enough and was preparing to leave. Then the girl came up to me and asked what I thought and I just said it's not for me and I'm leaving. She asked if I wanted to take my beer and I said they needed it more than I did. 2 or 3 weeks later she sent me a text, unfortunately we exchanged numbers, asking if the head of the group guy can call me and ask me questions on why I'm not signing up and how I thought the group session went. I didn't reply but sure enough the dude called me and I politely said it's not for me but he kept pushing. Finally I had to tell him to fuck off. And that was the end of that. Never went to work parties for a Tinder date again. It was a complete shit show and if it wasn't for the beer I brought or the Tinder date's dog, I would have just left. Looking back on it, during the pitch, the head of the group guy said at one point, "If you're not interested in making $1 million, you can just leave, no one's stopping you." I really wish I stood up, chugged my beer and said, "Fuck this shit, you guys are all stupid and no one should be joining, you will ruin your lives," and walk out. But that's just a daydream I have in the shower. He told me he's not gay but he prefers to have sex with men and prefers to be on the bottom. I asked if he was bi and he said no, I'm straight, I just like getting fucked in the ass. And then he asked me if he could pee in my butt cause he's always wanted to try it but he won't top guys so he can't find out how it feels. He's the head football coach of a private college in my state and that made it even weirder somehow. Edit, just want to add that I'm a woman and not a gay man at all, Lamau. Not Tinder but Match.com, and right in its infancy too long time ago when it was just weirdos doing online dating. I matched and met up with a girl. She was way hotter than me, like crazy hot, way out of my league. The date was going super well and we'd even made out a bit. Couldn't believe my luck. We decided that as it was going so well we'd keep it going and headed to a bar. We were getting cozy in a corner when a group of African lads came into the bar. I live in a very homogeneous white country to the point that that would even be noteworthy, especially at that time. She got up off where we were sitting and began shouting abuse at the lads who came in, saying they didn't belong here and dropping the N-word several times. I felt like that moment in a horror movie where the camera zooms in on your face and the background zooms out. I just got up and walked out. She tried to call me the next day to set up another date, I just ignored her. Clearly fucking nuts. Too good to be true in the truest sense. I went on a Tinder date several months ago around October and it went really well. Girl had a job, wasn't crazy, and was cute, so we decided to have a second date. The only thing was that the second date was at her Thanksgiving party so she could introduce me to her friends and family, which I thought was a bit too early for. Anyways, I didn't have anything planned that day so I decided to go. My job was to make the jungle juice for the party and it consisted of the usual Everclear, Hawaiian Punch, lemonade powder and ice combo I've used throughout college. It worked wonders and everyone got really drunk. Near the end of the party my date and her friends told me I did an amazing job on the drink. My date also mentioned that she really liked the fruit I added into there and that everyone at the party was trying to get some. For some reason, that did not sit well with drunk me, so I headed over to the alcohol canister to investigate. I grabbed my trusty ladle and started scraping the bottom of the canisters, and on one of the ladles I found some chunks of meat and pieces of ramen. That's when I realized that someone puked in the jungle juice. Edit, the recipe is very simple. It is about 1/6 Everclear, 1/3 Hawaiian Punch, half Sprite, lot of ice, and at least 2 pink lemonade powders. Everclear and lemonade powder goes into the container first. Now you mix it all up, add ice, and then you slowly start adding Hawaiian Punch until the taste of alcohol is dampened. Sprite is to make it a little bubbly at the end, and you just make the sweetest, most alcoholic drink ever. This isn't actually my story. It's my mom's. After getting out of an incredibly long and unpleasant marriage, my mom joined Tinder. Stella wanted to get her groove back, and I was 100% on her team. I'm an adult. I can't emphasize enough, she was not looking for a long-term connection. Her work sent her out of state for a while, and everything seemed perfect. She's going to get her rando D and there's no chance of it getting serious. She's sending me screenshots of the guys she's considering, I'm giving her tips on safety. And then she picks a guy. I immediately tell her that he is not a wise choice. This guy's profile is 98% red flags by volume. Whatever, she's an adult, I literally cannot stop her. Somehow in the 4 hours they are physically together he figures out which flight she's taking the next day. He used that to find her final destination, and somehow even finds her home address. He uses the public tax information to find her full name, and from there hunts down her Facebook. And finds my dad. Calls him on the phone. And dishes everything, sends him pictures and screenshots of convos. Then he starts sending my mom harassing messages that he loves her but that he can't trust her. Ultimately my mom had to call the police. ETA, oh, wow. My first silver. Thank you. I matched with a girl and sent a lot of messages. Later that night we talked on the phone and the conversation was going really well, so I asked to go out the next night. She agreed, and then 5 minutes later she tells me that needs to tell me something. She tells me that she's permanently in a wheelchair. So I'm either in a hole if I back out now or in a hole if I lead her on. I figure why not, it's just a date and it could be a fun time still. We talk more that night and go to bed. The next morning she calls me early and tells me she's doing something crazy. She won't tell me what, but she said she'll show me later. A few hours goes by and she calls me back and tells me she's going to send me a pic of what she did. I check my messages and I see a picture of her wrist, with my name now tattooed on it. We end the call and I immediately tell my friends about this crazy girl. Later that night I'm driving to her place cause I figure, she can be committed enough to tattoo my name on her, I should be committed enough to go on this date. Plus I have to know it's real. I'm almost at her place and I realize that my car may not accommodate her wheelchair, and I know she drives, so I ask if she can drive us. I'm walking in the parking lot and she drives up and I get in the car. Now I had figured she had a handicapped enabled car. Nope. Turns out she just uses 2 crutches to drive, one on the gas and one on the brake. I don't like this as we're driving on the Southern California freeways in traffic. We go eat and she gets a phone call from her daughter. Turns out she left her 10-year-old daughter at home alone and she's scared. I'm like, hey, we can go. But she's like, no, it's okay, I gave her something to make her sleep, she'll be asleep soon. So we finish up and I was gonna take her to see a movie, but the kid thing was too much, so we head home and my fingers are already crossed that we make it when she turns to me while driving and says, wow, I'm kinda drunk. In my head I'm like, 1 drink is all you had. But I ask if I can drive and she says no, she's gonna get in the fast lane and uses her crutch to hit the gas. I say my last prayers, but we made it back to her place. So I wheeled her back to her door, said goodbye and lived. Tattoo was real though. I went on a Tinder date a couple months ago on a Sunday afternoon. Met up with the guy around 3, he had a really good energy and was funny and complimentary. The place we wanted to go had a long line, so we went to another restaurant on the water for a drink and appetizers. He started slamming down my ties. I had 1, he had 3. They were strong. Like, I was tipsy, borderline drunk off of 1. The bar had a 2 my type a person limit, but he found another bartender to get his 3rd. He got drunker and started telling me he loved me, joking at first but getting increasingly serious. As we left he asked me to marry him. I kind of laughed it off, and was like, maybe we take it slow, we just met each other. He got so mad he stormed off and left me on a street corner. Then as soon as he got home, it was 5 p.m, he started texting me, come over. And I miss you. He was 43. WTF. There's a few, but the first that comes to mind. Met this really cute girl on Tinder, she was really cool and we got along pretty well. I forget how our first date went, but after hanging out a few times I went over to her place and we hooked up. It was pretty great, except that I forgot in her bio that she was fluent in German. And so mid-coitus this very cute blonde is shouting in German, which, no offense to the Germans, isn't exactly the sexiest language in the book. It was so unexpected and I was terrified. Another time we went to grab a drink at a bar and she obviously knew the bartender and we were all chatting it up. She was hanging on me and we had some PDA going on. After the bartender left I asked how she knew him, and she told me that he was her ex-husband. I was a bit shocked because we were all 20-somethings. When she went to the bathroom he leaned over and asked me how I took to the German in bed, and I, still a bit shocked, said it's alright. He winked at me and she came back. Weird girl, nice guy, comped our drinks and he still remembers me when I go in for a beer. Oh, I have one where I was probably the nightmare. I went on a first date with a girl from Tinder at a Cajun restaurant in Dallas. The restaurant was the Rizzu's on 75. I had read recently about some stuff called kratom, that is supposed to make you feel really relaxed and euphoric, and I had tried to make a tea from the recommended dosage the previous day, but I didn't feel anything off of it. So I figured if this stuff was supposed to make you be cool and euphoric, then the best time to take it would be for a first date. And since I didn't feel anything from it the first time, I figured I should take more. So I wrapped a lot of it. Kratom is usually sold as a greenish, super bitter powder, up inside of balls of deli meat, and swallowed those whole before the date. I then went to the lunch feeling nothing, until I met the girl and sat down, at which point I suddenly came to the realization that I was a few seconds away from projectile vomiting up all that kratom and deli meat in the middle of the restaurant. I excused myself, got up from the table, walked a few steps towards the bathroom until I began to violently vomit. At which point I covered my mouth with my hands, began choking on my own vomit as I sprinted towards the bathroom, leaked a trail of vomit all over the floor in a path towards the bathroom, then continued to violently projectile vomit into the trash can in the bathroom. I then spent a while to clean my face and wash my arms and hands, which were soaked in vomit. I then returned to the table and tried to survive the rest of the lunch date without dying of embarrassment. I felt like a huge asshole and was really embarrassed. Edit, the road was 75 in Dallas. Not I-75.